Story 1. Fentanyl was. I was hooked on heroin for years and transitioned to fentanyl because it was more bang for my buck. Cost way more, but I needed so little that it would last. I got in trouble and then needed to get clean, but when I started to get clean, my first few weeks I prayed for death. I lost 25 pounds in 9 days and lay there praying for it all to be over. I wasn't even able to stand upright for almost a month without passing out. It was so bad. I am happy to say that I am 611 days sober and haven't looked back. It took a lot of encouragement, resources, and prayer to make it this far. I prayed for a new life for years, and I finally have one. Story 2. Quitting smoking was probably the hardest thing I ever did in my life. I tried many times before I finally succeeded, but I haven't had a cigarette in 25 years now, and I smoked for 25 years. Story 3. Cocaine was hard. Booze was harder. Cigarettes were the hardest. Took me 2 solid years of trying to quit. I would go 2 to 3 days, then have a whole pack. I finally waited until I got the flu really bad and have not smoked 1 cigarette in 2,256 days. According to my application, that is 31,578 cigarettes not smoked and over $200,000 not spent. The last pack I purchased was over $17.50 here in California. Story 4. Procrastination. The rush of leaving everything to the last minute is weirdly addictive. I have tried everything from planners to therapy, but my brain still loves that last-minute panic. Story 5. Short-form content like YouTube Shorts and Reels are my new issue. One moment you're watching a handful of them, and the next thing you know, you haven't moved in 48 minutes, and it's dark outside. It really is hypnotism. Story 6. This is the kind of information that nobody asked for, but if anyone is reading this quietly and struggling, never give up. I, a 35-year-old female, started smoking at 16 and heavily drinking shortly after, during an abusive 7-year naive relationship with a guy 20 years older than me. I was addicted to cocaine for 10 years, and also methamphetamines, regularly taking anything to escape, including tranquilizers, ketamine, acid, and ecstasy. I was addicted to lying, thinking I was protecting myself. I became addicted to sex to punish myself. I was also anorexic. My body was as frail as a feather. Many more things happened that are just too much to mention. Most of my life was rough behind closed doors. When I really thought I was at my end and felt ready to give up, I gave it one last try. Never give up. That last time I was able to break myself free. Not all at once, but trying to survive and choosing to give that one final push gave me the strength I didn't know I had. Fast forward. I'm now happy, healthy, and fully independent. I've dealt with my trauma in so many ways. Therapy is amazing. It feels embarrassing at first, which is normal, but it will soothe your soul like a hug from the person who loved you the most. I've left it all behind. I'm married to someone I can't even believe is real. He's such a beautiful person, and I'm carrying our first baby. I know what it feels like to stare at blank walls while days and weeks pass by. I know what it feels like to relapse. I know how it feels to reject people who try to help you, and also how lonely it all feels. There's hope. Never give up. Never let that voice win. I believe in you, so try to believe in yourself. There will never be another you. Story 7. Food. You cannot go cold turkey, and it's such a huge part of our shared culture and the way we interact with other people that trying to eat healthier can mean you lose friends. Story 8. I think the most common addiction, which is the most difficult to get away from, would be alcohol, especially as the brain becomes dependent on the ethanol. I once knew a guy who drank a bottle of whiskey a day. He tried to stop suddenly and was on the floor not long after. Emergency services advised giving him a shot of whiskey as he'd become so dependent on it. He went to rehabilitation a couple of times, continued drinking beers, and passed away from acute liver disease. He was a really nice and friendly guy. He just could not stop his addiction. Story 9. Benzodiazepines. The withdrawals will quite literally send you into seizures and eventually death. I was a legal addict for 12 years, thanks to the Veterans Affairs. After 4 to 6 hours of missing a dose, my brain started clicking, and I was not even safe to drive and could not put a thought together to save my life. Alcohol is the only other drug that can kill you from withdrawal. Story 10. Codependency. It's a compulsive, deeply rooted issue. For me, it was caused by my traumatic upbringing. I did so many of the things called out here: excessive drinking, television, social media, binge eating. I was a workaholic. I was numb and needed these things to fill an endless void. By healing my trauma, I'm leaving all of that behind. Story 11. It's not drugs or alcohol for me. It's food. I'm a huge foodie. I do my best to eat relatively clean, but I love burgers and fries and pasta and pizza and donuts and all things food. Healthy food, too. I don't discriminate. I work out about 4 to 5 times a week and try to eat 2 meals a day. But even when I'm full, I'm thinking about what I'm going to be eating next. Story 12. Food. It's the only thing an addict can't quit completely. Eating is a constant challenge. Imagine telling an alcoholic or any other addict to keep a pantry and refrigerator full of alcohol, and that they're required to have 1 drink 3 times a day, but no more than that. I've quit a 2-pack a day nicotine addiction. Food is harder. Story 13. I was a heavy smoker for 15 years. Quit cold turkey. Never was addicted to pornography. I kicked a cocaine habit. Being a high-functioning alcoholic is probably something I will never be able to beat. Trying to quit drinking hurts me physically and mentally so badly, and it doesn't really affect my life right now, so I justify not putting myself through it. I know I am shortening my life by not quitting, but I still just can't do it. Story 14. Social media. I wish we could go back to simpler times. Everything, it seems, is guided by social media. I don't remember the last time I met someone who didn't care about it. Sugh. Story 15. Quitting caffeine was my toughest battle. The headaches and fatigue were brutal, but once I pushed through, I felt way better. It's wild how something so common can have such a grip on you. Story 16. Food. Imagine having to quit an addiction to carbohydrates, sugar, or similar substances, and you're told you still have to consume some but not too much. Hey, I want you to quit smoking, but you have to have 1 to 2 cigarettes a day. Good luck with that, bro. Story 17. Weed was a lot harder to quit smoking than vaping. There's nothing I'd rather do than get stoned and sit on my phone or play video games. I got to a point where nothing I did sober was fun. We took all of my dopamine from all the stuff I loved to do and only enjoyed doing it when high. It took about a month of pure boredom to finally get some dopamine back while sober. Story 18. For me, self-harm. My legs are destroyed, covered in scars and bandages. But the feeling of picking at my skin, coupled with the smell and feeling of blood on my fingers, is almost euphoric. Anytime I'm anxious, depressed, or bored, it's all I can think about. Story 19. Caffeine. I work in a call center and actually love it. At least 3/4 of the people there always have an energy drink in their hand and on their desk. The commissary has an entire drinks fridge full of nothing but energy drinks, and it gets refilled every week. There are only maybe 100 working in the office. We keep Monster afloat. Story 20. For me, quitting caffeine was brutal. The withdrawal headaches and fatigue were no joke. I used to rely on coffee to get through the day, but cutting it out has made my sleep much better. It took some time, but I finally feel more balanced without it. Story 21. I walked away from booze and consistently good cocaine in 1985 after an intense 8-year daily use affair with both. Morning drinking, snorting cocaine, later freebasing, I was a high-functioning addict who simply quit. Not suggesting for a moment that I'm stronger-willed or possessed of more self-discipline than anyone else, because to this day I still do plenty of other stupid, impulsive things. Constantly being broke, the bloody noses and recurring sinus infections, the debilitating hangovers, the emergency room visits for severe gut inflammation. It all struck me one morning and caused me to look in the mirror and say, "That's enough. You're killing yourself. This isn't worth it." Addictive tendencies run in my family. My mom was a low-key, long-term alcoholic. My 2 older siblings are nearing 70 and are still locked into multiple substance dependencies. All 4 of my 20-something nieces struggle on and off with opioids and booze, and my son wrestles with chronic marijuana and alcohol dependency. I do my utmost to meet them where they are regarding support, rather than beat my chest and say, "Be like me." because to this day I've really no idea why I was able to flip the switch to off without a backward glance. Truly didn't seem like a big deal then, but looking around as I get older I realize how inexplicably and profoundly lucky I am. Story 22. Heroin was very difficult. Half the time I kicked was in jail, which was challenging. It took 6 years of being homeless and going to jail and rehab before I got clean. I spent 1 year living in the Salvation Army, which helped me stay clean. In February, it will be 10 years. Story 23. Weed was the most difficult thing for me to quit. I have done a lot of cocaine, Molly, ecstasy, and smoked cigarettes with no problem quitting that stuff. But weed, let me tell you, that was hard. I smoked every day for 15 years. People say you cannot get addicted to weed, and that is a lie. I finally quit and have been 100% sober for 1.5 years. Now it just makes me sad the amount of money I spent over the years. Story 24. For me, quitting smoking was the toughest battle. I tried countless times before finally kicking the habit. Felt like a constant uphill struggle. But now I'm smoke-free for years. It's hard, but totally worth it in the end. Keep pushing through. Story 25. Pride and lust are dead even. Most people are addicted to pride. They always have to be right. They always need the final say. They always want to prove their point without understanding yours. They often insult you for disagreeing. They always need to look the best, be the best. Every other word out of their mouth is I. When people try to swallow their pride and accept being wrong or defeated, it literally hurts them. Lust is just as hard to break. Most people end up submitting to it. Lust is like a demon with artificial allure. It seems like it's bringing you pleasure, but it's secretly trying to harm you. Have sex, have sex, have sex. Oh, was that a gangster's wife? Oops. Story 26. Cigarettes are hard, but hopefully this helps one person. A few years ago, I made the switch to vaping. If you tried vaping 10 years ago, trust me, it's a whole new thing now. Those things pack a very satisfying drag. That said, the transition to vaping should be very easy. Also, much cheaper. This will also eliminate you smelling like an ashtray. The quality of life for you and those around you increases significantly. Now you're still getting nicotine, but it's odorless. As a bonus, you can do this in your house, which hopefully you weren't doing before. And yes, vaping makes you look like a douchebag, but this is the trade-off. Step down the vape from 6 to 3 to 1.5 to 0. This might take a few months. The final step for me was vaping zero nicotine for about a month. I was going on vacation for a week and knew it would be pretty much stress-free and a whole new routine. I chose day 1 of my vacation as the day. It was weird but not too hard actually. That was this past summer, and I am so happy to not be owned by nicotine anymore. Story 27. Quitting smoking was the toughest for me. Took several attempts and sheer willpower, but eventually, I made it through. Applications that track progress really helped me stay motivated by showing how much money I saved and health benefits gained over time. Story 28. For me, quitting caffeine was surprisingly tough. I underestimated how much my morning routine relied on it. The headaches and irritability were real, but switching to herbal tea helped. It took a couple of months to feel normal without that initial coffee jolt. Story 29. I am almost 30 years old. I have been smoking cigarettes for 15 years and vaping for 10. I stopped smoking cigarettes for good 1 year ago and have been vaping since. Even though I have been trying to also quit vaping, the fact that vape is more accessible made me so addicted to it I could never let it go. I even smoked at my desk at work in the call center while I'm on the toilet in bed watching TV while I drive. There isn't a place where the vape isn't in my hand. The problem I have is that people think that vaping is a substitute for smoking cigarettes. To be honest, personally, I think vaping is worse than cigarettes. In the past, I was able to quit cigarettes for a few months before I came back to it, but with vapes, I have never been able to stop for more than a day before falling back in. If you are reading this, do not fall into the trap of vaping. Or if you have already, just quit smoking altogether. It is hard, no doubt, but anyone can do it. As of 4 months ago, I am nicotine-free, healthy, and fit, and I feel the best and youngest I have ever felt in my life. God bless you all. Story 30. Meth, easy, 8 years or more. Weed tricky, 8 years or more. Cigarettes, expert, 7 years or more. Vape godlike, 2 years or more. Porn nightmare, 2 weeks. But I'm doing well. Edit time is my abstinence. Story 31. Sugar, I was on opioids every day for 4 years. Took me 2 months to get off them. I took Xanax every night to sleep, but decided they were not working for me anymore. So I weaned myself off in a month. However, sugar, I try, but after a few days, that craving gets too bad and I give in and those glucose numbers keep creeping up. Story 32. For me, quitting smoking was the toughest. It took multiple tries and a lot of determination, but I finally kicked it after years. It is all about finding that one thing or moment that makes you truly want to stop and sticking with it. Story 33. Cigarettes were terrible to quit. It took 7 tries and ultimately, an emergency room trip for an acute asthma attack and an ultimatum from the doctor was what did it. I quit December 30th, 2012, at 36, and here I am 12 years later, still a non-smoker. Story 34. Dopamine is strange since it's something your body naturally produces. However, if you do things to hit that dopamine high regularly, your body grows used to the amount of dopamine running through its neural pathways. It then looks for more and more, leading to reduced motivation to do anything because you feel like you have to work harder to get that small satisfaction. It doesn't have to be crazy things. I realized I had a dopamine addiction when I would spend close to 16 hours a day playing my favorite video game just to hear a small audio file play when specific loot would drop. Instant excitement, but I would ignore everything else in life just to get a dopamine hit from my game. Fast forward 4 months, and I am now happier after putting down games, started working out consistently, eating better, and stopped doom scrolling popular video media apps like TikTok, YouTube Shorts, and Reels. I find more satisfaction in accomplishing tasks that I put sweat and tears into and can feel the same effect in my brain when I stand back and look at what I have done.